and welcome back to another episode of the Dylbozer's Den. Joined here today with my co-host. We are primed and ready for a record I've been looking forward to since I was in my early 20s. What are we talking about today? We're talking about Moon Healer, the newest release from Arizona's own A Job For A Cowboy. There's no boots, there's no spurs, there's no hats for this one, but there are a shit ton of riffs and a lot of bass. This is a band I've been into since I was, 15, 16 years old when the aforementioned Doom EP came out that so many people really enjoy. Fast forward a couple of years, you got their Metal Blade release. Genesis, that came out in 2007, was the highest charting debut record for a band since the self-titled Slipknot record. Throughout the years, you received more records. You got Ruin Nation, you got Demonocracy, you got the last album they put out, which was 10 years ago with Sun Eater. And now here we are 10 years later, Moon Healer. Very similar in vein to Sun Eater, almost a sequel. Oh, not just in sound, but in concept. I will probably bastardize the description of this concept of this album because the singer of this band, Johnny Davey, has been a bit of a concept writer since day one in this band. But the concept, if I can get this correct, is basically the protagonist of the Sun Eater record basically goes into transcendence through chemical indulgence and basically becomes God or finds God in that sense. Definitely look into the lyricism of this album. It's definitely something that doesn't need to go overlooked. The big thing I noticed about this album, aside from it just being a really well put together record, is that it's very refined. It's got songs to it. It's not just 8 tracks of just riff soup, which a lot of technical or progressive leaning death metal gets. You get great songs on this. You get 8 tracks. It's not a long record. It's right under 40 minutes long. It's full of riffs, full of very aggressive playing, full of very precise playing from the band. In my opinion, it's flawless. Just like Sun Eater, you get bass playing all over this record. The bass is loud and upfront in the mix without being overbearing, which I do feel like maybe Sun Eater had a little bit of that, which there's nothing wrong with that. Coming from a bass player perspective, I do like that up front, but I also like to hear it mixed accordingly so you can hear everything. Sometimes when you get stuff really out up front in the mix, another instrument has to be sacrificed a little bit. But this record, everyone's mixed really well. It sounds really good. It's palatable. You could hand this record to someone that maybe doesn't want to listen to Suffocation or Defeated Sanity or, Cannibal Corpse. You could hand this to them and go, hey, you might enjoy this. If I could definitely see somebody enjoying Death Symbolic, really enjoying this record. Psychroptic, really enjoying this record. I wish the people that were into this band now were into this band 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because I feel like this band would be held in higher regard. Not to say they aren't held in a higher regard, but it would be phenomenal to see where this band could have gone if they had had all of the attention they have now and the fans that they have now. Typically with 10 years going by between albums, you will usually get a lineup change, but it's the same core 4 members. That being the lone original member and singer Johnny Davey, guitar players Al Glassman, and again, forgive me, Tony Senecandro on lead guitar, and you've got Nick Shangelis on bass, which we just interviewed on the Riff Worship portion. This is a solid lineup already, and then you add session drummer Naveen Copperwas. Forgive me for mispronouncing that last name if I did, but Naveen, if you're a fan of death metal, deathcore, technical metal of any sort, you know who he is. Former Animosity, current Entheos, former Animals as leaders. He adds so much texture to this because he's not only just a good, heavy, extreme metal drummer. The guy's got chops beyond belief. He adds some jazz chops to this record, some really kind of back and forth that I wasn't expecting. I will go into a little bit more of that when I talk about my standout track from this record. The one thing about this band I've always loved is I feel like Johnny Davey's vocals don't get enough attention. You can bring in all the Bree stuff from like the whole Doom era of this band, but there's more to it. This guy is a sucker for what I see as these great layered vocals. The guy sounds like a monster and has a very great character to his voice that is very recognizable to me. For some reason, I hear like Glenn Benton and like Matt Harvey kind of thrown into there with some of his vocal stylings, but it's all his own. You know, co-host of Riff Worship, Austin Paulson, referred to it as the Muck Monster one time. Bass player Nixon Jealous stomps all over this record, plays melodic lines, almost like his bass playing has a question mark at the end of it. It's very great. It's something that you can hear and feel, and it's those lines that make you want to look at the bass other than just a fundamental instrument, even though it is a fundamental instrument. The guitar players, Tony and Al, doing a great job. Riffs aplenty all over this. It's not just wanky tech death, which you can kind of veer into that sometimes with this subgenre. But man, this is a fantastic record. I couldn't say more. There's the 3 singles that were released are great tracks: Beyond the Chemical Door, The Agony Seeping Storm, The Forever Rot. This is already a year-end contender for me, and I couldn't be much happier with the album. My favorite track, I have to read this off a cue card because this fucker is long. It is The Sun Gave Me Ashes, So I Sought Out the Moon. This thing starts out with my favorite riff on the whole record, segues in from kind of a quieter portion, some sort of guitar effect, then it phases in, and it's just everybody's firing on all cylinders. They're hammering that riff in. This is the track where Naveen gets to kind of show off his chops a bit. There's some weird odd time kind of things going on with his drumming that I like. Then you get Johnny's like great layered vocals on top of this. Tell me what your favorite track is on here. Let us know. Until then, this is the Dylbozer.